could everyone please stand for a salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilman Bruno, Councilman Casio.
Here.
Councilman Cumming,
Here.
Councilman Ullman, Council President DeSena.
Here. Let the record reflect also in attendance Mayor Calamari, Township Administrator Tovo, Township Attorney Poller, and Township Clerk Witkowski. At this time, can I have a motion to enter into closed session for resolution number 19-171, closed session pending and potential litigation for COA? Ladies and gentlemen, we will go into closed and then come back out in approximately about an hour.
So moved.
Second.
One thing and everything else moved on. Councilman Casio,
Yes.
Councilman Cumming,
Yes.
Councilman Ullman,
Yes.
Council President DeSena.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen,
Just a quick, will we come out before an hour in case people leave? Do we?
I said approximately an hour, Mike.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right, if everybody could please leave so we can go into closed session, we'll be back in about an hour. Thank you.
Okay, resolution number 19-178. Should I read the title in as well?
No, you can just do the resolution.
I'm sorry.
We don't.
Whereas was filed with and is presently pending before the Township of Washington Planning Board, references Planning Board, an application concerning the properties which was summarized in the letters dated January 14th, 2019 and February 28th, 2019 from Hutton Schmanowitz, attorneys for the above referenced applicant, James Viviano et al. The applicant has requested that the Township of Washington consent to the making of said application to the Planning Board. And whereas the Township of Washington is the current record owner of property designated as Lot 1.05 in Block 1305 in the Township. And whereas the Township Council has considered the arguments advanced in favor of and against such consent being given, as set forth in various submissions by Hutton Schmanowitz, attorneys for the applicant, and B.D. Padovano, attorneys for the Concerned Neighbors of Washington Township Incorporated, a nonprofit corporation of the state of New Jersey. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Washington, as owner of Lot 1.05 and Block 1305 on the Township of Washington tax map, hereby consents to the applicant's making of the application pending before the Planning Board. May I ask for a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, Mr.
Okay, so before I vote, I just want it to be noted that I don't believe that this sitting council needs to provide consent. I believe that that consent has been given previously through the agreement with, the settlement agreement with Viviano. But I do understand that by not consenting, we are opening ourselves up to potential further litigation. So when I vote, it's based on those
Okay, thank you.
factors.
Mr. Cumming, Mr. Bruno, anything to add to that?
No, sir.
Mr. Bruno?
For me, I mean, I've heard arguments on both sides, and it goes back to 2001, which I was not involved with, and I'm still not sure, so for myself, can I give you my vote?
Not yet. we'll
Okay,
just
so myself,
comment. We're just
I have
giving
reasons that I just don't understand why we have to do it, so.
comments. Any comments from you, Dr. Councilman?
No, the choice is pretty clear for me, so.
Okay. Roll call?
Councilman Bruno.
Abstain.
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilman Cumming.
Recuse.
Councilman Ullman.
Yes.
Council President DeSena.
Yes. Thank you. Moving along on the original agenda, mayor's appointment without consent of council, appointment of alternate municipal prosecutor Christopher E. Martin Esquire. Mr. Mayor?
Mike, I thought we were going to suspend the rules and let the fire department do their
Oh, I'm sorry.
presentation.
Just do that one.
We'll just do that one.
Okay.
Voted on.
Move it on.
Okay. Hold on one second. To the council president and the council of the Township of Washington, please be advised that I am appointing the following citizen to the position set forth below. Alternate municipal prosecutor, Christopher E. Martin Esquire, for a one-year term expiring December 31st, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Anything on that, gentlemen?
No.
Okay.
Suspend the rules.
Can I have a motion to suspend the rules so the fire department presentation can be done next?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call. Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cody?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
No.
Council President Casella?
Yes. Could the record reflect that CFO Curran has joined us? Gentlemen, you're on, Mr. Conway.
I'm not sure if any of you want to come down, maybe be able to see a little bit better, especially using this side.
I think we're good, thank you.
Want to get one of some of the lights?
You want to turn one of them
Yeah.
out?
Yeah.
Mike, turn that first row, that should be enough.
Oh, that's good.
Is the
Thank
mic
you.
on? It's on, I saw the light. Yep, it's on, thank you.
Okay. Well, while this is booting up and we're getting started, I'll there we go. I'll introduce myself. I'm Rob Conley from Robbie Conley Architect. We're the architects that were hired by the township to work on the public safety complex. I myself, I've been a firefighter for 36 years, an architect who specializes, our firm specializes in emergency service buildings. John Toscano is with me tonight, and we're here to talk about, hopefully, our schematic design for the public safety complex. We did a study and a needs assessment and presented that to the township, I guess about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, on what the needs of the fire department were. At that time, we were asked to also include the,
There it goes, it's back on.
we were also asked to include the ambulance. At that time, we did not meet with the ambulance to go through the needs. We just pretty much did it based on what their existing building was. After the township asked us to come in and actually do the design for the complex, we did meet with the ambulance corps and go through what their needs were and went through that process. We met with the fire department again and reassessed their needs and made sure that everything was there before we started putting pencil to paper. We started putting pencil to paper. We went through a couple different iterations of the design, and our initial response and our initial understanding was that the project was going to be over budget at that point. So we went back and we met with the fire department. We met with the ambulance corps again.
Excuse me, Mr.
To
Conley?
see where we could.
Mr. Conley, you were given a budget?
The budget on the project that we presented before was about $5 million for the building.
Actually, it
construction.
was 5.9 million, so it was closer to 6. So what was the budget you're working within?
The budget we're working within is a $5 million for the building 5.9 to 6 for the total project cost. Okay?
And who gave you that budget?
That was from our original presentation that we did back a year and a half ago.
No, I appreciate that there's an estimate that you came up with of 5.9. I guess my question is, when you revisited the building after further input from the fire department, as well as sitting with the ambulance corps, you came up with a new number, and you said that it was too high. So what was that new number? And, are you putting a constraint on us?
That new number that we came up with originally from meeting with the needs was closer to $6 million for the construction of the building.
So
Okay?
about 7 million all in?
And about 7 million all in. And the other issue that we were having is the size of the building. We would have had to either demo the fire department, they would have had to find a temporary housing which would cost additional money that we weren't figuring into the project at that time, or we would have had to construct the building in phases, which again would be additional money. So what we did is we met with the fire department and the ambulance corps, took a look at some spaces that we could double use. So rather than having a separate meeting room and a separate day room, see if some of these spaces could be used, dual use. Also, same thing with some offices. Maybe we could cut down some offices. And we did do that. We also cut down some of the additional bays that they were looking at for possible future growth. And we were able to cut some of that out and get it down to a project that is closer to the budget and closer to, and will be able to fit on the site without doing a phased project or demoing the existing firehouse and having them relocate during construction. So, John? Again, this is me, but I kind of already did this. This is the original needs that we did with the fire department. About 6,300 square feet for operations, 3,100 square feet for administration, 5,300 square feet for house. And the ambulance was a little over 5,000 square feet for the ambulance, with that total being approximately 20,000 square feet. So we went through that, and that's when we started. This is the numbers that we originally started out with. And then we started to pare down from that because that didn't meet our need. So what we've come up with is a building. This here is the existing firehouse. We can construct this building to the east side of the existing firehouse on the parking lot area. You see there's the ambulance here, this area in the middle, and the fire department on that side. This is approximately 8 to 10 feet between the two buildings, and I see no problem with building this and the fire department still operating there. It's going to be a little difficult, but they will definitely still be able to operate there during the construction of the project. So this is the floor plan for that building. You can see the ambulance here. We have 2 ambulances and a utility vehicle that could pull out the side. This would not be a emergency response vehicle. That would be either a trailer or a future pickup truck or first responder vehicle, something of that sort. This on the first floor is all the ambulance corps. They have multi-purpose meeting training room, locker, showers, bunk rooms back here. Along this is their decon, their medical storage room, additional storage, a small little quiet study room, conference room back here, and then some office space here with their radio room. The other side of the building is all fire. This is fire operations, their maintenance, their SCBA, their decon space here. This is a radio room, which is a shared radio room. One of the things with this is they're looking at it possibly being a second dispatch center. So we put it out here into the shared space, the lobby right off of the corridor. So if need be, police, fire, and ambulance can all use that radio room as a secondary dispatch center. So The ambulance corps is all on the first floor. They have no space on the second floor. That's why you see here the stairs are, say, fire, because that's part of the fire space, because only the fire is required to go on the second floor. This first floor for the fire is just under 7,000 square feet. The ambulance building is just over 5,700 square feet, for a total footprint of about 12,690 square feet. The second floor, here's the stairs and the elevator and the lobby, coming up from down below. Meeting, training room, kitchen, lounge. On this side here is the lockers, showers, and bunk rooms, and then the office suite is right here in the middle. We have a stairwell here that goes down directly into the engine bays, and then these are the two egress stairs, one in the front and one in the back, and an elevator in the front of the building. The second floor of the building is approximately 6,200 square feet, and that's all fire, which brings us to a total for the fire of 13,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet for the ambulance. If you want to go forward to the next, here's the slide with all the different square footages. Here's some ideas. We started into the design development phase, getting some ideas of what the building could look like, doing some massing and some design. And these are two options that we came up with. We're still working on this in the design development phase as we move forward, but this gives you a little bit of an idea of what the building could look like. Right now, we're looking at this center part as being brick, and the rest of the building being an architectural block, masonry block. Same thing on this one would be brick and architectural block on the outside for the engine bays. And the cost of the building, for the building itself, including demolition, site work, the diesel exhaust systems, other specialized equipment, and an emergency generator, we're at $5,045,250. Now, out of that, the $65,000 that we currently have in there for the generator, we believe that that generator is going to be provided by a grant, but we're keeping that in there at this time until we know that that's definitely going to be provided by a grant. After you put in the soft costs at the end, we're down to $5,990,000. So that's pretty much our schematic design presentation. Anybody have any questions?
I have a few.
Okay.
So, in your original cost of 5,926, there were, there's furniture, there's an estimate of furniture cost
Yes,
for 72,000?
yes.
I don't see that on the new one.
The furniture was taken out because it would not be part of this project. They would either be getting furniture from elsewhere or out of their regular budget, I suppose. But I was told to take it out of this project at this time because it would not be part of this project.
So we're gonna, and who gave you, may I ask who gave you that instruction?
It was the committee. I don't remember exactly who it was, but we were meeting with the committee of the fire, the ambulance, and the mayor and a couple council people.
So we're gonna build a building, but we don't know how we're gonna furnish it. Well, we may furnish it through donations, we may furnish it through current operating, or...
Actually, most of the projects that we do, the furniture is not included in the actual project. I put that cost in there just so everybody can see what the all-in cost is in the beginning of a project.
So
But as we move forward, if it's not part of that project, I typically back it out.
So I guess my question is, this is a cost estimate. What are we estimating if we're not putting all the costs in?
The construction of the building, the professional fees, the legal reproduction, and a $500,000 10% contingency on the project.
Okay. So I think, you know, if we're talking about costs, we should understand what the costs are, not how we're going to break it up or how it's going to be paid. I think in my opinion, it would be helpful to understand what the total cost is to the taxpayer, not
Okay.
it's coming out of this line or that line or some other line.
What else have you taken out that
The only other
that you
thing-
normally put in?
The only, well, actually, at this phase, I don't normally put furniture.
I know, but what else, what else?
The only other thing that we cut down is we cut down on the legal and reproduction cost. And most of that is because this project will be put out as a digital disc, not drawings. So we're not talking about 300 sheets of drawings being reproduced 25, 30 times. So we were able to cut down on that reproduction. And also, we were able to cut down on the bonding cost a little bit because that's going to be handled, I'm not sure exactly how. But the bonding cost, and this is just a number that we put in the beginning of the project as a placeholder. It's basically 0.0175 of what the cost is. It's just a number that I put in there in the beginning.
So
Mike, just to answer your question about furniture, the emergency generator, which Mr. Conley has left in there of $65,000, we've already pretty much received the grant. It's just a matter of we're going to spend it in time.
Okay, well, we seem to have a problem with that.
I know, so, we're, you know, it's a matter of placeholder, so, you know, the grant is, we have the grant. It's just a matter of we gonna get this into construction quick enough to either keep the grant and move that line item into furniture, which I know is $9,000 short, I know the math, but that was why we didn't think it was an issue.
So you believe that we'll save $62,000 in reproduction fees?
Like I said, the reproduction number that I put in there is an arbitrary number that I've used for 20 years, and I put it in the beginning at the study phase because I don't know exactly what the reproduction is going to be. I don't know exactly how the bonding is going to be and how that project is going to be funded at that point. But as we go further along into the schematic design and further along into the design development, we start taking these arbitrary numbers and we start actually paring them down to what the actual cost is going to be. And I feel comfortable that $25,000 is more than enough for reproduction.
And 415, where do we stand with that
For
the professional fees?
the professional fees, actually, our fee is only $396,000. But I keep the 415 in there because you're probably going to have some township engineering and also some geotechnical and some other things. So there's about $19,000 in there that at this point right now, I don't know what that's going to be. As we move into design development, the geotechnical engineer will be on board. In fact, we're getting ready to contract them now. We're getting prices, so they will be on board, and we'll have a better idea of what the site engineer fee is going to be also. Because site engineering is not part of our project, the municipal site, or the municipal engineer will be working with us along for the site design.
And is that included?
That's part of that $415,000.
So, Mike, in your experience, is 15,000 enough for?
I'd have to check with Mr. Conley to see what the scope would be. I don't think it's a good number. It's a decent chunk of change.
15 is?
Yeah. For what they have, it's not a lot, you know, he's doing the bill, you know, it's curbs and sidewalks and stuff like that, and an apron, you know, so it's not like they're, you know.
I think their largest cost for the site engineering is going to be applying to the county planning board, which in the past, most of these projects get a letter of no interest, but there is a process that you have to go through. So I think that's going to be the majority of the cost from the site engineer. We intend to do most of the CAD work and the design work. We've worked with your site engineer on other projects, and that's the way we've done it before. We've done most of that design work. That is included in ours. They just do the engineering and give us the details and that sort of stuff. So we can keep that price down.
Okay. The site work, the 120K, what does that entail?
That's basically the curbs, some repaving, and we also are going to have to do some retaining wall along the back of the building. John, can you go back to the site for a moment? Right here. If you go down and right next to the fire department, there's actually a retaining wall that comes out in this area, about 6 feet or so. So we know that that retaining wall is gonna have to be removed, and it's gonna have to be moved back a little bit. So there will be some cost for that retaining wall also.
Okay.
And at this point, without having the site engineer involved, again, that $120,000 is an educated guess or something that, from my experience, I feel fairly comfortable with.
Okay, so we had to repair the existing retaining wall about 2 years ago. It cost $35,000 to repair, I don't know how many feet, but it seems like we're demolishing the retaining wall, we're pushing it back, we're building it, rebuilding it.
Who charges $35,000 for that wall, Mike? Didn't DMF build that wall? No? I don't know, I'm just,
TNS Corporation. And does it, so, we have to do work on the retaining wall. Does it include things like on-site drainage, water retention, all of those plans?
Well, that's where, until I meet with the site engineer, I'm not positive that there's not going to be any, but right now, the site that is there is almost 100% impervious. And since we're going to make that better by putting some landscaping out in the front of this area and putting some grass there, we're actually going to be reducing the impervious material. So therefore, stormwater management should not be an issue with this site at all.
Wait, okay. Do we know if we're going to have to increase any of the utility service to bring it in?
We haven't gotten into the project. This is schematic design. We're moving on into the design development phase at this point. At the end of design development, that's when we'll have some of these answers to these questions that you're asking, and that's where we're moving on to at this point.
Does it include signaling in front of the firehouse?
Signaling in front for the light?
Yes.
Yeah, that's typically something that's a county road. That's typically something that the county would handle, and that would be part of the project, but that would typically be through the county.
that's part of the signal project, Mike.
Well, I spoke to John this morning,
Okay,
and he said it's not.
it's not, okay.
A signal in front of that building is not. There is a plan to integrate with the circuitry at the light, allowing for a constant green to
Correct.
clear the flow, but wasn't there a requirement or a
We were
ask?
asking for fire trucks leaving station, two beacons, and I thought it was supposed to be part of it, so
Okay,
we have to talk to them.
Right.
Originally, when the mayor and I met with the county exec, there was two, trucks exiting station with the two yellow flashing beacons that they would control with a remote. There's supposed to be one on each side, but that may have,
okay.
they're solar powered and actuated by remote, so it's not a big deal.
Okay. In terms of the demolition line, what does that include?
That includes removing the firehouse, the footings and foundations for the firehouse.
Does it include the red house?
It does not include the red house, no.
The red house will be demolished in less than 2 weeks. The contract's been awarded.
What about a parking lot for commuters?
Excuse, what,
Parking lot for commuters?
the parking lot for commuters, that is not necessarily in the site work number. But until I find out where the site work number is going to be and we get to the next phase, then we'll see if that is, can be put in as part of this. Remember, at this point right now, we still have a 10% contingency, $500,000 contingency on the project.
Yeah, I saw that. How much of that generally gets eaten away in your experience?
For,
Well, you put 10%. How much of the 10% usually on your projects? I think 10% is good, but how much of it usually gets eaten
we
away?
try to reduce that as we get further along in the project. And if you're asking about change orders, we're typically 1 to 2% change orders on the whole project.
What did Montville come in total change orders?
Montvale came in a little bit higher because we were so far under budget on that the owner
Oh, they added, okay.
some things.
But without scope
But
creep, what happened?
Without scope, the Montvale's change orders were probably around 2%.
And no environmental remediation, that means there is none, or that means it does not include it if you find it?
That means that that is not included in that cost estimate.
So if we have environmental remediation, that's a cost.
Then that would be a separate cost, yes. Yes, because I can't estimate or guess on what environmental remediation may even be required, if any.
Are we aware, are there any USTs on the site?
I don't know. I don't know if there are. As far as we know, there are no active. My understanding is that these were residential properties in the past. The only thing I can do is assume that if there was any, they would have been taken out when the properties were demolished. But
Don't assume.
if we do run into a situation where there's footings and foundations still there, which I've run into on a couple of projects where supposedly the site was clean, you're probably talking about $50,000 to $100,000, so that would eat up some of that contingency. But I still feel that we're still comfortable with the number that we're looking at right now at this point. I'm hoping that as we move forward and we get the site engineer involved, that we can start to pare those numbers down a little bit, like I said.
I mean, just so the council's aware, there's the 5-star was a contaminated site, and I know the plume went west. I don't know if it went east, but it's something we should be aware of.
It went south also, toward Fruit Town.
Yes. The diesel exhaust in line 5,
Yes.
so just a question, it's 63,000. In the earlier proposals, it's 63,000 whether it was just the fire department or the fire department and the EMT. So there's no incremental cost to cover both sides of those?
No, there is. It's approximately $9,000 per bay, and at that time, we were looking at more bays. Since we've reduced some of those bays, we're still talking about 7 bays, 5 for the fire and 2 for the EMS. This one back here, we weren't necessarily looking at a diesel exhaust system because it's either going to be a trailer or probably a gas-powered vehicle.
Okay. So it would come in less than that?
No, it's still
So-
7. It's 5 for the fire and 2 for the ambulance, so that's 7.
Okay.
And again, that, until we get further into construction documents, then we'll be able to find out exactly what that cost is going to be. But right now, I estimate all the time $9,000 per vehicle.
Per bay.
Per bay, yes.
And the specialized equipment, it went from 30 to 20. What have we eliminated?
With having some of the less doors and things of that sort, I just have felt that that number is more reasonable. And specialized equipment, we're talking about key fob, security, those sort of systems.
It's not fire apparatus?
It's not fire apparatus,
It's
no.
related to the building?
It's related to the building,
Okay.
yes.
And would the estimate include a full security system?
Yes, and that's part of that specialized equipment. It's actually, when you say a full security system, are you talking about like an intrusion alert system? Or are you talking
That
about
plus access control?
access control? Definitely. Intrusion alert, we typically don't put intrusion alert on these buildings. That's something that could be added when we get into the next phases if you feel it's necessary.
And what about cameras?
Cameras are included as part of that special equipment.
Do you know where the fire department is going to store the trailer that was in the earlier schematics?
I'm not sure if that would be the trailer back there, or whether they would be storing it outside.
Well, I think that's the boat.
That's probably a better question for the fire chief.
Well, the way the bay's set up, we can put the trailer and the boat there, but right now we're keeping our trailer outside, so it can actually stay outside if need be.
Okay. So it was a conscious decision to take it off the plan. The earlier schematics, the initial proposal, had a bay for the trailer.
We eliminated the bay.
Okay.
I I think that was one of the things that we eliminated to get the building down in the budget and in the size that we needed it to be.
I think both departments made a conscious decision,
Yes.
Mike, to eliminate a bay, both ambulance and fire both eliminated a bay in our committee meetings.
Yes, they both eliminated a bay, they both had some spaces that are now dual use as opposed to having, you know, a single use in each space. Both organizations were actually great to work with, and we came to the table to try to cut it down and get to where we felt that we needed to be.
And I think the way Mr. Connolly and John, you know, gave the ambulance their double bays and that back side door is important, because originally, you know, it was a big, when they had three ambulance bays and that back door was a lot of room. So I think both departments, you know,
I assume somewhere there's a telecommunications room in here?
There's two.
it's two.
Two?
Yes, I believe it's on the second floor, there's an IT.
Okay.
And then also, stay there for a second, John, this room back here, we actually put the mechanical and electrical and sprinkler back in this area, because we're not quite sure how the building is going to be maintained yet, but we put that back there so it's possible to put a back door coming in there, so if the township's going to have it maintained, the fire or the ambulance corps does not have to be there to let people in, and they're not going to have to go through the whole building to do maintenance. Everything's right there on the back, accessible from the exterior.
Good idea.
So, I guess my question is, are there redundant spaces here?
I don't believe redundant
So,
as,
so there, for instance, I had sent a note to the mayor, or to Mr. Tovo, asking about the use of the washer and dryer that the fire department has. So I guess to decontaminate and clean their turnout gear. And we have another one for the ambulance.
yes.
So I guess my question is, do we need two? And, you know, what's for a volunteer fire department of X members and an ambulance corps of Y members, would one suffice? And, you know, why, I understand we want to,
We actually had this discussion, not to cut you off, but we actually had this discussion, and because the turnout gear, it's an ear extractor, it's more of a commercial type machine, and the ambulance squad needs more of a residential type unit, that they did need to have their separate facilities, their separate spaces for that.
so my understanding is that the ambulance also needs it to clean their, my apologies, to clean their gear for bodily fluids and things of that nature. That can be done in a residential machine?
Yes, that can be done. When you say gear, are you talking about, most ambulance squads, I'm not sure if this squad actually has turnout bunker type clothing. If they have turnout bunker type clothing, then that would probably be something in the fire department's system. But if you're talking about their everyday station wear that they wear out to most of the calls, which is just cotton, usually cotton pants, cotton shirt, that will be done in a regular residential washing machine, yes. As with their sheets, their towels, those sort of things.
Mike, there was also, just so you know, during the committee meetings, there was a big reason to keep the two buildings separate and distinct from each other, where ambulance would keep control of their side of the building or their square footage, and fire would keep control. They do have access control between the two. I think there's, in the lobby, they can get in the lobby,
Here,
and there's one over there. But it doesn't, there's no interconnections this way. The ambulance corps, you know, has their side of the building, and because we looked at like combining the bunk rooms, and then it was said, well, it may be different times where they might be needed, so that's why we didn't combine the two, because we looked at the committee looked at a whole bunch of ways to shrink the building even further by combining
Combining the
laundry
rooms.
rooms, bunk
Yes.
rooms, bathrooms, also combining bathrooms, but it starts putting the building two together where you'd have too many shared access, you start creating a building with hallways,
Yeah,
and that's what we
common
wanted to
areas.
avoid.
We tried to combine
We
as
tried
much
to make
as
a lot
possible.
common, and it didn't work.
One of the things,
I guess I don't follow that. A bathroom is a bathroom.
But when you make it common for both, you're introducing hallways, long hallways, because you want to still keep the departments separate. So it created a lot of wasted space by doing that.
So the goal was to create basically two buildings under one roof.
No, that's not the goal. We spent a lot of time looking at combining as much space, and Mr. Conley and John, and the committee looked at, let's combine the bathrooms, let's combine this, let's combine that, and it just, at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to combine them, because if you're in an emergency and you both need them, then how do you share them?
and really, when it comes to bathroom facilities, the bathroom facilities are a code issue. The number of toilets that are required are per code. So if we were to put the bathrooms together,
They just grow larger.
bathroom.
Yeah.
We would still have the same number of toilet fixtures, the same number of sinks, the same number of everything. It would just be that they would be together as opposed to separated. And the organizations would much rather have them separated. So because it doesn't really increase the cost to have them separated, we're keeping them separated for them.
And the same with the kitchen.
Same with kitchen, you have different types. This is more of like a little residential type kitchenette for the EMS. And the fire kitchen is more like the existing kitchen that they have right now.
Training room, meeting room, there's no opportunity to consolidate that?
Well, we did actually consolidate that. Originally, the ambulance had a separate training room and training/meeting room separate. And what actually was chosen to do was to have this space here, which is actually the ready room, offices, and training room, all in one space, as opposed to having two separate large spaces that aren't used, or only used periodically.
And what about the ambulance and the fire department utilizing one training room?
Well, John, can you go to the second floor? This is the training room for the fire up on the second floor. And you're saying about using that for the regular meetings, or?
Well, I guess we have two large spaces labeled meeting room, training room.
Well, you have, actually you have one large space here as meeting training room. The other space downstairs is more of a lounge, office/training room.
Well,
So I assume that if the ambulance is going to need to have 60 people in a training, since they're not going to fit on the first floor, then they would talk to the fire department about using that second floor training space. Because there's only one large training space in the building. The other training space was shrunk down, is much smaller for the ambulance.
And that's the second floor.
This is the
The
second
large
floor,
space.
which is the fire. If you go back to the first floor, John, this is the training space right here for the ambulance, which is also office, which is also lounge, which is a multi-use space, not too undifferent than what they have currently. Just a little bit larger than what they have currently.
and what's the difference, what is the lounge day room on the second floor versus the meeting training room?
John, can you go back to the second floor? The meeting training room is just that. It's a meeting training room, similar to this room here. They would have tables in there, though, so when they're doing the training, they can open up their books and they can have their things on sort of a desk/table. The day room or lounge ready room is where the TVs are, the sofa, the place for the hangout. That's where they sit there and they recharge after the calls. That's where the camaraderie that's required and that you really need to have in your volunteer fire organizations, that's where that happens.
Video conferencing also would be in the meeting rooms?
I don't know if they would have video conferencing, but typically in most of these meeting training rooms, they're set up for, with internet access, because a lot of the training's done on internet now. And what we find in most places is this box here that you see, this movie screen, is no longer used.
No,
Most of them have a large TV screen, and all of their training is done on that.
So that would be incorporated.
That would be incorporated in that.
Okay.
Not necessarily as part of the budget, but part of what they would be spending to outfit that training space.
So does the budget contemplate that this is an empty shell?
Not an empty shell, but movable furniture is typically not part of a building construction project. Movable furniture, there's no reason for the township to pay a general contractor to put in movable furniture. It's typically done as a separate contract.
Understood, but from this schematic, there is no furniture in the building.
No.
And from
On a
this- from the-
schematic design, we wouldn't do that.
And in the cost estimate, there is no furniture accounted for.
There is no line item for furniture accounted for. That is correct.
So this cost is an empty shell of furniture.
No movable furniture, correct.
This is more, I guess, to Mike or the mayor, but have all the fire department and ambulance corps officers signed off on this?
The committee members signed off on it, and I don't know what their bylaws state of what they need to do, but I was told that we had, the last committee meeting, we had a sign off from both the departments. So I don't know I don't know the bylaws of the fire department or the ambulance corps, but I know initially, when the ambulance corps was to move, they had a vote, and they gave us authorization to continue. The vote passed to move to this location, and the committee people signed off on this plan for the presentation to move forward.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a departmental chief, the two chiefs here, can they, chief, fire chief, can you?
There's nothing in our bylaws for this. This is a town building, where the ambulance corps owns their own building. We serve at your discretion.
But your department is comfortable bringing this plan to this meeting?
Everything we've had, we've presented, I even invited the entire department if they wanted to come up tonight and look at this, and everybody's fine with it.
Ambulance corps, you guys in the same, right? I know we had to take an initial vote because of the moving of the building, and it passed, and the committee said to proceed with this also.
And do we need to deed over any of the building to the ambulance corps?
Not that
The
that,
answer is yes. As part of the agreement, we
Okay.
currently have a deed to the property that we're at.
Can't have him talk, can't have him talk,
So
can't.
what we asked was.
you're gonna have to come up to the mic if we,
Sorry.
Name, address.
So when the process began, we have a deed to the property that we're at now. I'm sorry, my name is Robert Raby, I'm the captain of the ambulance corps. So what we asked was that if we're going to cooperate and move, we're happy to do that and be part of this. And we just asked that we don't lose anything in that process. And so currently we have a deed that we're able to be in the location that we're at for as long as we remain a volunteer organization serving the town. And obviously we intend to do that. And so in moving, part of the memorandum of understanding that we initially submitted was that we would have what we have now, as long as we serve the town as a volunteer organization, we have the deed to that property in the
Okay.
building.
thank you. Mr. Pollard, do you see any
Well,
objection to that?
yeah, I mean, you're talking about deeding a part of a building?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
No.
No, it's not happening. I think what's gonna, probably the better way of doing it is to create a lease situation,
Okay,
which is.
Same thing.
Can't amount to ownership over, but. Does
does that answer your question, Mike?
Well, it doesn't, I mean, I don't need the answer. I asked the question. I mean, I guess the question is to the ambulance corps. I mean, it seems like they had an understanding, and maybe that understanding wasn't fully understood, and it sounds like we can't do it, but it might be able to be done in a different manner. I think, you know,
Well, I think you're getting a lot more square footage than you currently have, so I think that was one of the, you know,
We would be open to discussing a lease situation as long as, you know, it was under the same terms as the deed. We'd have to obviously bring it to our members and discuss it with them, but, you know, the lease would have to be such that we have the same freedoms that we have now. And, you know, in that circumstance, you know, my thought is that we'd proceed forward, but we would discuss it with our members.
thank you.
We don't see that being a problem.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Alman?
no.
Mr. Cumming, anything for Mr. Conley and John?
I've see quite a bit of very good information, and I'm very happy with it.
Okay. Mr. Bruno?
No.
Dr. Casio?
How can we bring the price down? $6 million is a lot of money. That's always my concern, you know, but the fire department and the ambulance department needs a space to operate out that's safe for everyone, but I'm always concerned about cost, so.
I will basically go through my three triangles. There's three things that affect cost: square footage of the building, quality of the materials, and the market. Square footage of the building, we have control of. We've already controlled that, I think, by meeting with them and both organizations pairing off what they can pair off. Materials, we're not looking to build the Taj Mahal here, but we're also not looking to build a building that's not going to last the township a good deal of time. We're looking at masonry, construction, normal construction, masonry and wood. That's what we're looking at. I don't think it's too elaborate. I think it's just the type of construction that's needed for this. And I think that, you know, we're looking at putting in not the cheapest materials, but we're definitely not looking at putting in high-end materials.
I wouldn't expect the cheapest, I would expect, you know, standard current materials. Listen, we're spending $6 million, it better last a couple hundred years, so, better last.
I always say that when we design a building for a town, we're designing a building that's going to last 50 to 100 years.
Okay,
And that's where I want that building to last.
excellent.
I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the building committee people for all the countless Thursdays we've spent on this and for all their time and energy bringing it back to their organizations. I think it's a great start, and it's the future of Washington Township Fire and Ambulance. Proud to be a part of it, and I can't wait to see it move forward. So
Absolutely.
thank you, gentlemen, everybody on the committee and everything. Great job. Mr. Barry, anything you'd like to add?
No, I would echo those comments. It's been a pleasure working with the bodies. You know, I think, you know, we have a great facility outlined here, and like Mike DeSena said, look forward to bringing it to completion.
So I guess the next stage, gentlemen, is to approve, I know we originally approved Mr. Conley's overall price, but we said we proceed in phases, so this is the concept development phase end, right? And
basically what I'm asking for is an approval to, that this is the schematic design, so I
Correct.
can continue moving on with the design development, and we can get some of Councilman Ullman's questions hopefully answered. And I look forward to, if council pleases, being back in 2 to 3 months in front of you with the end of the design development phase, where we will have you know, much more information for you and hopefully get that cost down a little bit if we possibly can.
Okay, great.
How far over does the building actually go into the parking lot? Against the end of the property?
We're staying about, what was it, 40 feet?
40 feet away from the property line.
40
Bob.
feet away from the end of the property line. We wanted to have enough room there for the ambulance to park on that side, of the ambulance personnel
All the way
to
to-
park on that
All the
side.
way to the right,
Yes.
whichever way you look at it?
And we also have enough space for them to pull that, I put my point our way, but to be able to pull that utility vehicle out and make that turn to get back out on.
And the fire guys and ladies, when they come in, where are they parking? To
the left
volunteer-
side, where the
fire-
building is now.
That will be where the building is now. This will be repaved as parking on that side. And if you look here, this is the existing parking, this is where the monument is, and this is the Red House property. So at this point, we're really looking at this portion of the property only. If this ends up being paved as additional parking or something as part of the project, that's not really part of what we're looking at this point, so.
And I know I asked about commuter parking, but I'm not sure if did we say anything about commuter parking? I forget.
I
Sorry.
think currently the
Yeah,
community
they're there,
parking
but
is in
you're
this
you're
space.
taking all that away.
So I think if we're taking that away, I think the idea was that that would be added down here.
So the
And
monument and the red house?
hopefully we'll get somewhere, the Red House, I guess.
Or tearing it
Or
down.
we're tearing the Red House down in the next 2 weeks, Bob, but we're also looking at the possible, the Seasons commuter lot being done by then. All right, Mr. Mayor, I think that's progressing, correct?
That is, yes.
Do we know what it costs to tear down the Red House? Did we get the estimates?
We already got a bid for it. I think Mr. Tobo can address that, Mr. Allman.
For removal of the tank, capping of the sewer, and tear down of the house, about $22,000.
And we had budgeted that in last year's budget, correct? Or the funds are coming from 18 or no?
No.
That was never budgeted for, that's coming from the
Oh, it's coming from the
budget, yeah.
And can you go back to
I'm
the
not even sure it's in 19 yet.
frontal view? The elevation, I guess?
Yes.
So what's the back of the house going to look like?
The back of the building would be architectural block or what's called color smooth block. Architectural block is the textured kind of rock face block. So I'm not sure at this time whether we would run that rock face all the way around the building or if we would just go with a colored smooth block on the back of the building to keep the cost down.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. So right now, there's an existing firehouse that has a rear facade, and I think it's like a mansard on the back.
Yes.
So when we move the firehouse down and, put it behind 3 other houses, what are they going to be looking at? Is there going to be a pitched roof and this block that you're referring to?
Yes.
Is it going to be a flat roof that just
No,
drops off?
it's going to be a pitched roof, basically similar to what you're looking at on the front of the building, without the tower and probably without, if we go to this one, without the little eyebrow, but you'll see it be something like that. But we're putting brick on the front that's addressing the street. The back of the building will just be concrete block, either, like I said, color smooth block to match the rock face or the architectural block, or we could run the architectural block back there also.
And do you know, based on these preliminary drawings, what the height of the main building is?
I believe we were at 12, 24, probably about
22-foot truss bearer in the
22
base.
foot,
The roof peak, at the peak is somewhere around 40 feet.
probably somewhere around 40.
And do we know what the existing is?
I'm guessing the existing is probably between 30 and 35.
And the only reason I ask, and I know, I don't think we have to worry about zoning, but when we did the gas station on the corner, the neighbors understandably were very concerned about what the change to their backyard would look like. So it looks like we're pushing back into that retaining wall, and it's actually going to be sited slightly deeper in the lot.
Yes, it's sitting back a little bit deeper than what the firehouse currently is,
So it'll be sitting back deeper and it'll be taller.
and a little bit taller, yes.
Okay.
John, are we okay with giving Mr. Conley the okay to move on?
No.
You're a no, Mike?
No.
Mr. Cumming?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
I don't have a problem moving on, but we still haven't completed a budget yet. So I think before we give anybody the go-ahead, we have a week or two to complete a budget. We have a debt schedule that's still outstanding, which includes $6 million. So let's get that done.
Okay.
Which hopefully will be done in a week. I mean, our deadline's coming up, so.
Well, Monday's the deadline,
All right, so let's put a budget to bed and then see where it all chips may fall, you know? It's not, I mean, you've gone this far, it's not that I'm gonna walk away from it, but let's get one thing done.
Not to interrupt you, but I'd really like to keep moving.
I understand.
We're already approved to the next phase.
Right, we wanna keep moving also, but right now we're staring at, $10 million in debt. We're trying to finalize the budget, that's not finalized yet. We have a firehouse coming, we have a DMF coming, and we have a lot of projects in the air. So before I, as a resident and a councilman, commit to future monies, I'd like to know how it's all gonna be done. Very simple.
I just would like to get to the point where we can really nail down.
Yeah, I don't think a
cost.
week or two will hold you up at this point,
Okay.
Dr. Casco, please.
Listen, if we're talking about a week, we're talking about a week.
Well, Monday we have to pass the budget.
Yeah, we gotta pass the budget, so, again, it's gonna happen. We gotta just find out what the price is and go along from there. So-
Robbie, correct me if I'm wrong, we've already given you the okay to take this further. We haven't exhausted that pool of money yet.
That is correct.
All right, so I just want to make sure everyone understands that part of it, that it's not anything extra for them to proceed
Right.
at this point.
Yes, and that is already, we're already moving forward into the design development phase. We're getting the consultants on board, we're doing that, because we need to really do that before we can nail down exactly what this cost is going to be. The next phase includes our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer, our structural engineer, which is the money that you've already approved, which I've already gotten these
It's part of your
contracts,
415
which
then,
is
right?
going.
It's part of your 415?
Yes.
Yes,
okay. All
yes.
right, that's fine.
Part of- Yes, it's actually, it's part of the 396.
Okay,
but,
that's
yeah,
fine.
part of
And
that.
we approved the 138, which was the first two
Correct.
phases, schematic design and design development.
Correct.
So you have been approved.
Yes, exactly, and I'm just giving you, at the end of schematic design, I'm showing you what we've come up with, the schematic design. I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
That's why I was trying to get
Forward
approval on
into
this before you proceed
Exactly.
and somebody says, whoa, I don't like this.
I don't want to move on
Yeah.
through design development when I'm going to be spending more of the township's money and find out at the end of design development that nobody up here likes it.
Correct, and that's why I was asking for a vote.
Yes, I want to make sure that everybody's on board and everybody agrees with the direction that we're heading, so we can start to go into further detail and get down to the next phase of the project.
Bob, so you okay with moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it looks looks wonderful. If it's functional for these folks out here, that's great. To me, it looks nice.
Okay. Dr. Cassidy, you're okay with, since we approved it already on this concept?
Yeah, put the smooth block in the back, because it's cheaper. I'm good with it. No one will see it.
I want to tell you, it's been a pleasure to work with Mr. Conley and his associates and the gentleman from the fire department and create something within reason.
And the ambulance corps.
And the ambulance corps. Leave us not forget them, because they are, after all, about two-thirds of what the size of the other is. But it's been a pleasure to be part of the creative process, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
It's been a pleasure for me to serve Washington
Thank you, gentlemen.
to the end. So
Thank you.
Okay, getting back onto the agenda, reading a total list of bills. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Okay, the following is a list of bills paid since the last bill list was submitted, representing March 1st, 2019 through March 29th, 2019. Total 2018 reserves, $190,887.77. Total 2019 current, $2,357,826.73. Total capital fund, $110,861.45. Total animal control, $868.80. Total grant fund, $0. Total trust fund, $4,481.40. Total escrow trust, $14,311.42.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Sure, man.
On page 5, we put a deposit down for the holiday party. Did we look at any of the other venues in town to spread that wealth?
We did, that's the only one that can handle the size that we are talking about.
Okay.
How many people are you planning?
We're anticipating 90 plus or minus.
And Bakari can't handle 90 plus?
Not comfortably.
So they can't handle 90 plus?
Correct.
Thank you, gentlemen.
On page 14, the recycling collection, is that, that's our contracted amount?
Yes, sir, it is.
And when does that contract expire?
End of 19.
End of 19. I just had, there was one just more. Page 22, the sewer jet, the repair on the sewer jet. Is that the shared expense?
Yes, it is.
Did we break it, or?
No, we did not. I didn't believe it was breaking. I think it was maintenance to it.
Okay.
Maintenance and scheduled repairs.
On page 27, the $45,000 that's been paid, how is that calculated? Because it differs from the schematic amount that is in his quote. So is it paid on schematic design is $59,000 in his quote. Do we know if we paid other values or other amounts previously?
It should be progress billing, but let me check that for you.
Okay. That was it for me.
Anything else, gentlemen?
On, if I may be next?
Yes.
All right. Page 12, well and knives. The flue in the police department was clogged. Does anybody know anything about that? Or could we look at that?
The furnace flue?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a big flue and it's a big furnace. And we can usually hear it.
All right. Mr. Tovo, can you look into that for well and I?
Certainly.
Anything else, Mr. Conley?
No, that'll do it for me for
Mr.
now.
Bruno?
No.
Dr. Casio?
No.
Okay, moving on. Approval of minutes, December 17, 2018, regular meeting, December 17, 2018, conference meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Abstain.
Councilman Cumming?
Approve, yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSantis?
Yes. Report of the mayor, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I just have a very quick report because I knew it would be a long meeting, so more just a couple of PSAs. This is the first week of household debris pickup, so anyone who's not aware and who is listening, we've started that this week. Shredding and e-cycle date is not this coming Saturday, but the following one on April 13th. And I hope a lot of people have noticed that we've put up the lighted pedestrian crossing signs since the weather was conducive to it. So just be careful of people crossing. That's all I have.
Would you like to do your proclamation for?
Yes. April is Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month, whereas we all have a responsibility as individuals, neighbors, community members, and citizens of the Township of Washington to help create healthy, nurturing, and safe experiences for children, and whereas healthy and safe childhoods help produce confident and successful adults, and whereas child abuse and neglect often occur when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and don't know how to cope, and whereas incidents of child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure all families have the support they need and deserve to raise their children in healthy environments, and whereas court-appointed special advocates, or CASA for short, is authorized by the state statute and federal law to help the court and child welfare systems make best interest decisions on behalf of children removed from home because of abuse or neglect. And whereas CASA volunteer advocates in the Township of Washington help to ensure that abused and neglected children who are placed in foster care and other out-of-home placements are safe and receive the services they need to achieve well-being. And whereas CASA advocates reduce the number of reduce the number of moves between placements, help shorten the overall time a child remains in placement, and serve as consistent person in the child's life until that child achieves permanency in a safe home with a loving family. Now, therefore, I, Peter Calamari, do hereby proclaim April 2019 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month in the Township of Washington, and April 5th as CASA Child Advocacy Day 2019, and urge all citizens to support the CASA network across New Jersey as it strengthens families and helps children learn, grow, and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Report of council, Mr. Ullman.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I just wanted to report that last week I had the pleasure of speaking with David Schwartz of Firehouse Grants. I don't know where we stand with our grant process, but I did speak to him regarding the programs, the capital programs we have with our fire department, including the building of a new firehouse, the replacement of a tower ladder, the replacement of a engine, as well as upgrades to the radio system. And we had a brief discussion. He is normally associated with the assistance to the Firefighters Grant Program, AFG. He said, based on some of the very high-level information I shared with him about the age of our tower ladder, that it would be a good candidate for one of these grants. And we discussed the grant fees. They do it on a fee basis. The grant, and a single AFG grant application is $4,500. Seems like a good investment for a potentially $1 million apparatus.
Is that only if we get the grant, Mike, or is that if we, just to apply?
It's to apply. It's the
So
submission of
if we get it or don't get it, we still own the money?
Yes.
Okay.
And then he felt that that program wasn't suited for the firehouse, but he did think that possibly radios, there might be a possibility, although it would only be for the fire department and the ambulance corps. It wouldn't cover the police. And as well as Scott Packs, he felt, although I know we just bought a bunch, that there is a lot of grant money and it's sort of low-hanging fruit. So I don't know if we've identified a grant writer at this point or I've spoken to anyone, but I can forward Dave's contact information to you, Mr. Tovo.
Please do.
And, you know, I'm sure he'd be happy to speak to you and get some more information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Cumming?
I'm going to defer to the length of the evening and the amount of
Okay.
material we have to cover, so I won't give a report.
Mr. Bruno?
As will I.
Dr. Cassio?
Let's move on to the
Very quickly, a message from the Township Health Department. In light of recent updates regarding the measles outbreak in Rockland County, Northwest Bergen Regional Health Commission continues to emphasize both the need to immunize as well as the importance of individuals knowing their vaccination status. Currently, there are no measles outbreaks or cases in Bergen County, but it is important that we remain vigilant in disease prevention and protection. We urge everyone to check to make sure they and their family members are up to date on measles, mumps, rubella, MMR vaccine, and all other age-appropriate immunizations. Getting vaccinated not only protects you, it protects others around you who are too young to get the vaccine or can't receive it for medical reasons. If you're planning on an international trip, the World Health Organization recommends that adults or adolescents unsure of their immune status get a dose of measles vaccines before traveling. The NJDOH recommends that if you are unvaccinated, you should avoid going to communities where there is an active measles outbreak. For more information about measles, contact your healthcare provider or visit the New Jersey Department of Health website. There will be e-recycling in the township on April 13th from 9 a.m. to noon in the municipal parking lot. Bring your papers to be shredded and electronic items to be disposed of properly. New Jersey Tree Recovery Program, free seedlings in April. There will be seedlings given away from 9 to 12:30 on April 13th and April 20th. We'll be able to pick up free tree seedlings at the DMF yard, first come, first served basis. Regulation for landlord-tenant pursuant to NJAC 5:29, 1.1, owners of dwellings in the township that are not owner-occupied must complete a landlord identity registration form. Please contact the clerk's office for further information. Crossing guards, the Township of Washington Police Department is now accepting applications for full and part-time crossing guards. Applications are on the township website or may be picked up in person or at police headquarters. The Recreation Department is looking for camp counselors for the Township Summer Rec Program. High school and college students are welcome to apply. Reminder, high school applicants need working papers. Both college and high school age applicants need 2 forms of ID, such as a driver's license, social security card, passport, high school ID. Please visit the Township website for further information. That's all I have, gentlemen. Thank you. At this time, do I have a motion to open the meeting up to the public?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes.
Serna?
Anybody like to come up and address the council, Mrs. Osmond?
Mary Ann Osmond, 960 Adams Place. I just have a question. You voted on a resolution when you came back from closed session. And it was introduced by Dr. Casio and seconded by Mr. Cummings. Am I correct in this?
I think that was the order.
Okay. I need Mr. Pollard to ask her a question. Why would someone then recuse, and what does that mean on a vote?
That's what he did. I'm not explaining what he did. He did what he did.
All right, Mr. Cumming, may I ask?
He doesn't have to explain it either.
That was his vote, Mrs. Osmond.
That was his vote.
The word
No.
recuse.
Recuse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you usually recuse yourself, you're not in the situation, you don't listen. I mean, I'm using a comment.
That was his vote,
That was
Mrs.
the vote.
Osmond.
Yeah, that was the vote.
Okay, I also have one other question. Is the bond counsel and the auditor coming tonight?
No, they are not.
They're not. Okay, that's the main thing I want to say. All right.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council?
Hey guys. John Snyder, 606 Chestnut Street, also representing Pascal Press. My comment is that I think it'd be useful for the council to explain to people what the resolution was about. Those who are not following it closely, I think it would just be useful.
I don't think we're going to be doing that.
Is there a reason?
Yeah, it was a closed session matter. It involves litigation. It involves, things that are pretty complex. It would take a pretty long dissertation to bring you up to date onto what that's about, and it's not something that we're going to be doing on this particular issue.
Was it about the Viviano project?
Yeah.
And you just can't characterize what it was you voted on?
It says-
It's self-evident in the resolution.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon.
Would you like a copy of the resolution?
Anybody else like to address the council? Seeing no one, motion to close the public discussion?
Motion.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Ordinances, adoption, second reading, ordinance number 19-05, an ordinance amending fees for summer recreation program activities and related services. Resolution number 19-172, authorizing second reading and opening of public hearing for ordinance 1905. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Anybody like to address ordinance 1905?
Can I do a roll call first, or are you?
I'm asking council. Anybody like to address it?
Well, first you get a resolution, a motion.
We got a motion.
I got a motion second.
Motion second.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a motion and a second.
I'm sorry.
Anybody from the public, 1905? Seeing no one, roll call?
Wait a minute. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, roll
You gotta
call.
do roll call.
Then we can
Yes.
open it, then we close it.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Bruno?
It's late. We're doing 1905.
Authorizing second reading, opening for the
Oh,
public
so
hearing.
yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Motion to,
Now you can ask.
Now
if
you can
there's
open.
anyone.
anybody like to discuss 1905? Seeing no one, motion to close public hearing for ordinance 1905.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
Bob is a preemptive yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Bruno, Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Motion to adopt ordinance number 19-05 at second reading by title. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I make one quick comment.
Yes.
On the days I gave you, the changes of the times that were brought up at the introduction, changed on the floor, so the adoption reflects all the correct changes in the times, beginning and end times for summer programs, before and after prep. Those changes were made.
Roll call?
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Emergency resolution, resolution number 19-173, emergency resolution amending summer recreation fees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Under consent agenda, all of the following items have been determined to have the unanimous consent of council and will be enacted in one motion. Should any item require independent consideration, any council member may have such item removed from the consent agenda. Resolution number 19-174, authorized signatory to Bergen County Open Space Trust Fund project contract, Senior Citizens Park, bocce courts, $30,000. Resolution number 19-175, authorized refund of application and vital record fees in the amount of $68. Daniel Shapolanski. Resolution number 19-176, award of bid for ADA compliant parking stalls at Clark and Gardner Fields to Marini Brothers, $39,857.50. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
I just had one question.
Sure, Mike.
The ADA compliant, wasn't that supposed to include memorial, or that wasn't
No,
included?
that was not, no. It was.
That was a separate grant
No parking.
previously awarded.
For the parking, not for the basketball,
Correct. We haven't gone out to bid for basketball courts yet,
or the parking?
park.
or the parking.
Yeah,
At the
separate.
world, okay. That was it.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
never mind.
Yes or no? What did you want?
I just want to discuss 19-174,
Oh,
but that's all right. It's a consent agenda, so, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Adjournment to conference agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Hey, Michael,
Yes.
just on the bocce court,
Yes.
when we say we're gonna replace the concrete sidewalk with 6-inch wide concrete paver walk, what does that mean?
I think
Use
I
pavers.
think he's using 6-inch pavers. I read the same thing, yeah. It's gonna be the same walk instead of being out of old concrete and asphalt. He's gonna put paving stones, 6-inch paving stones down.
Is that like ADA compliant?
Yeah, it's gonna be like a paver sidewalk.
Okay, all right.
I asked the same thing, yeah, it didn't make it.
Councilman Bruno? Going into conference. Councilman Casio?
Sure.
Councilman Klein?
Yes.
Councilman Allman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Can we take a 5-minute break, gentlemen?
Sure.
Is there a conference agenda?
Yeah, it's one page, but you're basically
We're going to do budget.
Budget time.
discussion.
Budget discussion, and then that's pretty much it, Bob.
So it's budget.
Yeah, it's budget. 2019 budget meeting it's not with the budget, with
Yeah,
bond.
the meeting with the bond counsel
Correct.
and the auditor.
To discuss the bond counsel and the auditor, Mr. Tovo, right?
Okay, so you don't need me for the budget.
No, it's not a budget.
No.
No.
Should you stay for closed for PBA?
PBA?
No, sir, no.
Okay.
I need,
Oh, you already have the date then.
But if we need a definition, Ken, we're going to call you. So.
All right, Mr. Tovo, you guys had a meeting on Thursday with the bond counsel and the auditor?
yes, sir, and in your packet is a memo reflecting the content of that meeting. It was very beneficial to all in attendance, and Mr. Beinfeld and Mr. May were of great assistance. If you've reviewed the memo, the highlights are that as of now, there's no action required by council to approve the 2019 budget, with the exception that number 9, Mr. May's professional services will not exceed $7,500. That is not currently funded, so we need council's consent to do so.
Okay, so we need to do what, an emergency, Judy, what would we need to,
We have to amend the budget before we present.
for $7,500 for Mr.
Right.
Beinfeld or Mr. May?
Mr. May.
Mr. May.
And that's not, nothing for him is in there at all.
Just as audit expense.
Just the audit fees, this would be additional to the audit fees.
What are you looking at?
And what, we're looking at this document.
The,
At the bottom, number
at the
9.
bottom of the back, Bob, is
And what professional services specifically are those?
Mr. Beinfeld and Mr. May will work to prepare options for the council to review in regards to how they want to finance any outstanding debt and any future debt we may incur.
No, so it's basically consultation on future debt payments.
Bob, you find it?
Yes, and how we do that, long-term, short-term,
Okay, yes.
bonds versus bonds.
And what line item is that, Mr. Tovo? In
I
our,
think we should take that as financial services.
can you give me the page?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Get his budget book.
You know it better than I do, so instead of me flipping around.
Page 12. It's going to be line 90120132200.
Mr. Jobo, what's the amount in there now?
13,000.
So it's gonna be up to 20,500 then?
21,000. Oh, 20,000, yeah, 70,000.
200.
Sorry, so you were right. It's getting late, I'm sorry.
Are we looking at the documents handed out on the 25th,
Most
March
current one.
25th?
Most current packet.
Ours is dated March 26th in the upper left at 12:07 PM.
The only ones you got, so.
The one that was handed out at
Yeah,
the
I
last
thought
meeting.
I put it in there. 325 was the last one there.
So it's got,
What page?
page 12, like 7th line down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines down this one.
11?
Yeah, 132,200 on page 12. Financial service fee. It's currently at 13. And we gotta add 7,500, so it'd be 20,05.
20,500.
Let me just see the
Yeah,
number.
sure.
132, 20, 132?
Yeah.
Come on, big page 10, I don't know what happened to mine. Okay. Yeah, so that's gonna be 20,750 or something?
Yep, 20,750.
20,500.
Yeah, 20.
500.
Yeah.
20. What page you want, Steve?
20500.
What page you want, Steve?
Page 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down.
Undated
Financial
the
service
26th.
fee.
You got the same page?
No, I got the 25th.
Financial service fee, yep,
There was another
13,000, we're
handout.
making it 20,500.
That's on,
The next day.
next page.
No,
Page
I'm saying my
There's
last
another,
handout
there was
the
another
25th.
handout if you're dated the 25th.
This is a March 26 run in the top corner, Bob.
Yeah.
I know, I got one the 25th.
Yeah, we got it, there is a 25th and a 26th, so there's two of them.
Do you have that one?
When was the 26th given out?
The last meeting, we got 26.
On the 26th.
On the 26th.
Yeah, all right.
You know, we could run another one and send it home.
No, yeah, if you can, well, hold on, let me just see.
You probably
this.
have it in your packet, right?
Let's see this, oh, here we go. All
There you
right.
go.
All right,
Then you got it.
326, huh?
There you go.
Go
Oh,
to
well.
page 12.
So, Mr.
in
Tovo,
the middle of-
gentlemen, we okay with increasing it for the 7,500 to get Mr. May on board to give us the presentation, I guess, to put together what, Judy, like a report on what the different options we have on bonding?
And bands.
I'm good with
Could be a
it.
combination of both.
Combination of both. You okay with it, Mr. Bruno, Mr. Elman, Mr. Conlon?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, if you can continue on that subject, Mr. Tovo, on anything else that came out
Are
of
there any
you?
questions based on the memo that was provided?
Yeah, just one, and Judy, you could probably answer this. Item 4, where it says, authorized ordinance, we can begin the bid, we can fund it. I'm assuming when they say fund it, we can issue bans.
Yes.
Long-term bonding cannot occur until the projects are complete and all costs are final. So does that mean, let's say we hit the shovel on the ground with the firehouse in September and it's finished, we can't bond that permanently until
It doesn't say cannot, it says can occur.
long-term bonding can occur after they are complete.
Correct, that way, yeah, you can wait till it's fully complete and you have the final numbers before you go to bonding it.
But can you fund it permanently before that?
You can.
When we say they, I think that means the bidding process. Is that correct, Bob? When we say occur after they are complete?
So Judy, I guess the question is, do we
Well,
have
after
to finish the
project is
firehouse
complete.
Oh,
to bond the 6 million, or can we do it before we go out to bid?
No, you don't have to finish it. I think the discussion surrounding this was that the question had arisen whether or not you needed to have the ordinance had to be fully funded in order to start the project, in order to actually award the bid. And, as long as you have the authorized, the authorization of the ordinance, then you could actually award the bid.
Okay.
That's what was surrounding that question. And you can really long-term bond at any time you want. But the only thing is, when we talked about arbitrage, you don't want to have all that money sitting there and then not start spending it. You can't have the money in the bank earning interest and not spending it down.
Especially if there's going to be a rate cut.
Yes.
Okay.
So how are we planning on funding, approving the budget without knowing what the debt schedule is?
Well, if you look at number 1,
Yeah, I saw that.
okay, because right now, we have $6 million in bands. And even if we were to renew, we wouldn't have any interest due until next year on that. If we were to renew the bands again, we'd have the interest payment plus whatever we would renew for, whether we went to $7 million or $8 million. If we went to permanent financing, we wouldn't have any type of payment because we would actually do that probably like July or August. You would have no payment because on that schedule, the payment is due after 6 months and so is the interest. So right now, as the budget stands, the current budget, we have enough money in there whether we take action or not.
We have the 5% down payment.
Yes, we have that, yes.
Right, so the existing I understand, and then we have a capital, but we're going to spend $550,000 on projects that we don't know how we're going to fund yet.
Are you referring to the capital improvement plan? I mean, capital improvement plan?
Yeah, the 550 is 5% of the 10 million,
Right,
and the 10 million is what we need to fund, which we don't know how we're funding it.
right, but the only thing right now, okay, say we decided to take out bands for 10 million, okay? The bands that are due this year are the 6 million plus the interest on that band,
Yeah, the 6 million I understand.
right?
And the 550 I
So say you
understand.
decided to take out 10 million in bands to fund this. The bands are not due till next year, August, so then you would pay your 16 million plus your interest. If you decided to go into permanent financing, which would be bonds, because the timing is going to be in August. You would not have any payment due for 6 months, which would take us into 2020, and you would have no interest payment due either.
Is that with all permanent bonding? It's all
Yes.
6-month lag?
So they always try to do it at the end, towards towards mid-year, because you don't have a payment due to 6 months, or nor interest.
And that's standard.
I would say at like 9 out of 10 standard. I mean, for us, we are, when I talked to Mr. Beinfeld, he said that's what he would look to do.
I wasn't aware that was the situation. I thought it was just,
It's usually
you know,
standard.
So I
mean,
guess in the
sometimes-
$7,500 study, he would tell us what that's going to cost us in
Right,
2020,
right.
and we'd have to make a
I
decision.
mean, like, we have a
on how
really
we're gonna
good
proceed.
rating, so we probably could get that. Like, if we were in a town that had a really bad rating, maybe you couldn't get that.
Never
but-
Washington Township.
Well, we have a great rating. We do have a great rating.
Okay. So, no, I thought you had to pay basically principal and interest rate off the bat.
No, 6 months.
Okay.
So, I mean, we could fund the 5%.
Well, that's what she put in the budget. is the
That's what I
5%.
put in the budget.
Yeah, but I guess until we get this analysis, you know, are we comfortable moving forward with all these projects if we don't know what it's going to cost?
Well, that's what they're going to do the analysis on, because eventually you have to do the project anyway. You've got to do it no matter what. So you're really looking at changing it, well, I would think you definitely have to do the DMF building, I would imagine, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're really looking at your budget for 2020, how that's going to be affected.
Mike, if I can chime in for a moment, you wouldn't authorize the borrowing even by ordinance until you know what projects you want to do and when. So again, it doesn't affect this year's budget, but when you decide what projects you want to do, that's when you would authorize the debt, even if we didn't fund it.
I'm assuming that the firehouse is going to be before us, before the end of the year.
Right.
And so the firehouse, let's say that's 6 million or 5 million? 5 million?
6 million.
6
That
million.
includes the soft costs, yeah.
6 million, the bands is 6 million. You know, forgetting everything else, you know, we have $12 million. And I would want to understand, before I approve the firehouse, what the impact is going to be on the residents. So
Well, that's what Mr. May is going to give us in that report.
yeah, so I'm fine funding the 550, but, you know, until we get that, that report and understand what the impact is, you know, I'm hesitant to move forward with any projects.
We wouldn't move forward with them, correct me if I'm wrong, Judy, until the council passes an ordinance to do the bonding.
Right.
The
And an ordinance-
offer-
So you still have a level of control.
And an ordinance is only authorization, it's not that you're actually going out, but right now, we have the last payment of $440,000. So say we had to pay $500,000 on a long-term, you know, bond, okay? That's $60,000 more than what we have in the budget for all these years.
Sure.
And we're looking at the bands, because I believe it was Mr. Bruno had said, a lot of the bands are old, and some of them we should really pay down, and we want to try to plan that into future budgets, so you don't have that big band issue. And that's something they're going to look at.
Yeah, he's going to look at what the let's say 440 offsets the future bond, whether we
Right.
bond or ban,
Right, because we
combination
have
of both.
440 now, and say we pay $500,000 on a bond, okay? You eventually want to put a little more money in your budget to start taking those bands down, because a lot of those bands are old, they're out there, you want to retire them.
There was a general consent, correct me if I'm wrong, in that meeting, that we pay off with the surplus, dedicate some of the surplus to paying off everything that's outstanding prior to 13, or including
Yes.
13.
I think there was some, I think some at 13, I believe there were.
I think there was discussion. I don't know if there was general consent.
Well, I mean, at our
No,
meeting,
it was
Bob, that
discussion.
you weren't at.
Which one was that?
The one that this memo came from.
Thursday. The one on Thursday with Bonfeld
Yeah.
in mind.
I mean, I'm just disappointed that, you know, again, we're at the 11th hour. This is something that I asked for probably, forget, about 3 years ago. I gave up on it. But at the beginning of this budget process, I couldn't have been more emphatic to get some kind of debt schedule together so we wouldn't be at the 11th hour. And now we still don't have a debt schedule. And we have $550,000 that we're looking at, which is the 5% of 10 million, and here we are again, so. disappointing.
Well, that's the whole idea with where Mr. May was.
I know
they
what the whole
proposed- they
idea was,
proposed-
but
well, they
this is
proposed
why I
him
asked
do
to
that.
have it in January, so that we wouldn't be here in April, 5 days before we have to approve and adopt the budget, not knowing what it is. Not you, but, you know,
Oh,
again, this
well,
is
I was
something was
working-
asked for. I
Well,
know.
I guess we could have called him earlier, but we were working on budgets in December and January.
Yeah, but all you had to do is make a call, get a letter, and pay $7,500. He would do the rest of the work, right? Not you, but
That's not my call.
obviously, I get it.
Any other questions on the 10 questions Mr. Feinfeld and Mr. Tova and put together on this, and Mrs. Curran?
The building, so we got two buildings, basically, number 7. We have two buildings we're looking at. Are they considered different types of buildings, and would that be under the 15 to 18, or would it be longer than the 15 to 18? Would they speak to that?
Very likely, both buildings will be over the 15 to 18, and they will likely be classified differently, A, B, or C. Fairly confident that the fire department's going to be a Class B building. DMF could be a B or a C. And then A, B, or C determines the expected lifespan of the building and the life of the bonding.
Okay.
And that'll be in the report? Bob?
By then, they should have an idea what class the buildings will be.
Okay. Anything else, Michael? Mr. Cumming, anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Bruno, anything else? Dr. Casio?
Not that I can think of at this time, no.
Gentlemen, are we okay? So Monday, we need to introduce the budget. Do we need to set up another special meeting, or are we comfortable with the way the changes are right now to proceed with Monday's introduction of the budget?
So, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
You go.
So, right now, we're looking at a tax impact of what, Judy?
Well, that's the question I have. Have you decided what you want to use as a surplus?
I think that's the big question
No,
in the
we
room.
haven't. That's my point. We don't know what we're doing with the surplus, we don't know what the debt is, we don't know what we're funding.
Well, I think the
So
two
we're back to
choices
square
were,
one.
what was it, almost $300, right? If we're
Yes.
using 1.2,
Yeah.
right? And the other one was, I want to say
86. Using 1.9.
$90 or so. So as a council, we have to decide what type of impact we want to give our residents.
Well, I could also
And how
tell
much
you,
of the-
I
yeah.
also talked to Lord Finch's today, and they're almost done with the budget document. And we got our final numbers in for the library. It's going to increase a little bit.
Okay,
Not by much. I think I want to say maybe 598, and I think went 600,000. So
Okay.
it's a couple $1,000s. The other thing is, Gary Vinci had informed that for outside billing, although we realized over $100,000 last year, he said that we only have $17,000 sitting in trust. So he doesn't,
back up. Say that again?
okay, we realized $100,000 in outside billing last year for police, but we only have $17,000 sitting in the trust. So therefore,
How's there a discrepancy like that? Do we know?
no, what happens is that you're bringing money in periodically.
Right.
Okay, so last year, they look at it and say, okay, you had $100,000. We've only collected $17,000 so far this year. So the state would look at that, so they would not consider taking in $100,000 to revenue. They become very strict with that. So they only will consider the $17,000 that we collected so far. So we can't anticipate $100,000.
But isn't that a pass-through?
I'm sorry?
Isn't the outside billing a pass-through?
Not on the administrative and the cost side, that comes into current revenue.
But how much of the 100,000 is current revenue out of the?
Well, right now, we collected only 17,000.
Yeah,
so
but
you-
how much is revenue for the car and the administrative?
17,000.
Oh, 17,000.
17,000.
And last year, we collected 100 in car.
Over the year, but he said that the state is now not considering that anymore. They're looking at what you've collected so far, so you can't anticipate you can't anticipate this year, okay, what you've made last year. You can only anticipate what you have so far, and they want to actually see what you collected for 19. So that has to be reduced.
Okay.
Who makes these rules?
Yeah.
State,
His construction season hasn't even started yet.
I mean,
State, they're always changing.
I mean,
Can we get an answer in writing from them?
I mean, I got it from Gary Vinci. I mean, he's done budgets,
He's better than
I don't
the
know how
state.
many years.
So what about the 45,000 from the Town Day Reserve that we showed as anticipated revenue, which we'll never get either?
That was anticipated, what happens is that was anticipated last year.
Right.
What it basically does is it brings down your amount to be raised by taxation. You actually took it out of your trust
I understand
reserve.
that,
Right.
but we never got the revenue. We just did some Mickey Mouse accounting and said that
Well,
that
it's a
was...
switch, it's a paper switch.
Yeah, paper switch, I
Right, but it's
know.
going from one account to another. Otherwise, if you didn't move it from trust to current, you'd have to raise the amount to be raised.
No, we could have charged the bills to the reserve. We didn't have to raise anything. This is the point.
Well-
We had this money sitting in a reserve. Those bills should have been charged to
Charged
that
there, right.
reserve. We didn't do it. So now we lost $45,000 because somebody made some entry in July, moving it to an anticipated reserve or made some accounting
Yeah, but the-
entry,
but the-
and now it's
The
gone.
budget was adopted with that in there.
I saw that, yeah,
Yeah.
but where did that come from? I don't know.
So-
I mean,
Well, it was put in and it was adopted.
yeah, I know it was adopted, but we never go through anticipated revenues when we do our budget. That's the problem.
You don't?
No.
Oh,
So,
that's, I don't know if that, I wouldn't do it that way. I would go with
Right, I
voting.
agree. Well, yeah,
I mean,
that's the way it was
I
done.
actually submitted all my anticipated revenues to Lurtrin, so he could actually look at what I did and make a comparison. That's what I did.
Would you have any $45,000 transfers like that any longer, Judy, or?
I wouldn't do anything, no, I wouldn't do
Okay,
anything.
that's
like
all I
that.
wanted to-
I mean, if you wanted me to do something like
No,
that.
we don't
to
want you-
bring
no,
down
we
the
don't want
amount to
that.
be
That's
raised,
a-
I would rather charge it to the reserve. That's what I would do. I mean, even like I made an estimate on delinquent taxes and we went over the schedule and that went down a little bit too. But I did all my estimates and gave it to him so he could verify all the anticipated revenue, just to get an
So
idea.
you show an anticipated revenue for Town Day and all that stuff like?
Yeah, but I didn't put that in that. I'm charging everything to the reserve.
Okay.
So do we have all that? Do we have the revenues? We've asked about this for weeks too.
Well, if
also.
you look at my Edmunds that I gave you, that has all my revenues on there. That's the second part of that.
What page?
If you look in the back of, one part has all your budget, and then I think there's 3 sheets in the back, and I anticipated all the revenues.
What page?
What, the last 3 pages?
Towards the end.
Very back.
What page?
If you go to page 70, the
76.
bottom says 4.188 million.
70 or 76?
Oh, 70.
70.
Yeah, okay.
And that's just gonna go down a little.
Say again? I'm sorry, where am I looking now?
See 4188, 670? Page 70, it's the bottom last number.
page 70.
70.
This is on March 26th run date, Judy? Page 70?
It may be, I mean, I just read it today, it may be like a different page new, I don't know.
What's the number?
Yeah.
If you start, look like 67, it has amount to be raised, and it has library tax and surplus and,
Do you have an account number that
Have
we
you never
can
got that?
go to that?
well, it starts with revenues, it's 90107 and 90108, 192. You don't have anything like this?
I think we just have the appropriations, the expenses. Amount to be raised by taxation, 67. I don't think so. Let's see.
Somewhere else.
No, 67, we still have budget stuff.
No, it's still budget stuff.
Oh,
After.
this is April 1. This is, yours
I
is
just
more.
read this today, right,
Yeah,
but-
but yours is more current.
But the only thing is you have nothing, because every time when I ran them, there's nothing in the back.
No. It doesn't, it stops on page
So
78.
we never got this. Yeah, you even have 2.2 surplus anticipated. We used to just get that on a separate schedule. Alcohol licenses anticipated.
Here we go, right here, that's somewhere. I saw that somewhere. What page, Judy?
Page 67, I think.
In the original
This
budget,
goes back to the February 4th budget.
page 67?
67, but the February the 4th.
If you go to the end, you'll see that I have a total here anticipated.
Oh, yeah, library tax.
There's my anticipated, but this is going to change now because these numbers have gone down, because Alex gave me new numbers today. Because I have to lower the outside building, I have to lower the, I'm going to lower the surface. You don't want that surface anymore, you want you to decide
Right,
upon
so
surface.
can we get a new one of these?
Yeah.
So you have 2.2, we want 1.2 at the
You
start.
want 1, 2, right?
What page you on?
This is on
67 on the February 4th run
February
date.
4th, Mike.
It's
one
in
of
your
the first
binder, it's
ones.
the original binder.
That didn't come out in the,
No, didn't come out in the other one. It didn't come out in the most recent one, right, Judy?
no.
Oh, I wonder why.
So the March 26th one does not, I don't think.
No, March 26th doesn't have these
Right,
pages.
okay. So we need that before we can adopt and approve and,
25th, 26th,
Oh.
too many.
Yeah.
Well, maybe what we could do is, tomorrow I will be working on doing an increase and a decrease resolution for you to see, like, by Wednesday. Maybe I can send all that to you with that revenue sheet at the same time. You can use that and look at it.
To me, the big
So I
one
guess
is,
the first thing is how much
I could do the
surplus are we
revenue.
anticipating for 28, in this 2019 budget?
what do you have on yours for
How much is-
anticipated?
2.2 she has.
No, that was 2018 is.
No, that's this year.
No, I put the same thing in this year because we haven't decided what we were going to do. We had 1, 2,
So-
1, 9.
Yeah, you
so-
have to revise all this.
Okay, so we got,
As a matter of fact, I could revise all this and just send you the revenues.
Yeah.
And Alex said he probably would have
We'd love to see
an
it.
exact.
so right now, Judy, I'm sorry, you have 2.2 million, right?
Right, and you want-
For anticipated revenue,
Right, for surplus, so you want to try to make that. 1.2.
surplus.
John, are we making it 1.2 or
1.2 on that?
1.9? That's what we need to decide.
I feel it should be 1.2 at this
Or anything
point.
in between.
Or anything in between, whatever.
I think it should be 1.2, and we have to use the $2 million for projects. We've reduced the taxes for 4 years, and so we're gonna be back to where we were 4 years ago, so. it's
So
not
you
too bad.
use 1.2 and you're at
376.
376 increase for the year. Is that correct?
But don't forget though now, police outside billing on page 68 was 100,000,
289.
17,000 now.
Yeah,
289?
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, the 376 was,
Unless they got a newer sheet. Or a
So
different
how
sheet.
much of the miscellaneous are you taking out now? 90-something, 85,000?
In terms
You-
of
you
outside
only allowed-
billing, it's going from 100,000 to 17,000.
Right, so you lost, what, 83,000? That's a minimum amount to lose on,
Well, it's
on,
half a tax point, we're 160.
no, but on the 289, it's not, what is it
Oh,
gonna be?
no, no, it's
288?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not a
291?
big, yeah. It's not a big thing.
So gentlemen, I guess the first thing is how much surplus do we want to anticipate? 1.2 or 1.9?
My feeling is 1.2, that's my vote.
Mr. Ullman?
And the 1.2 brings us to 252?
289.
289,
Yeah.
almost 300. Let's call it
Now,
300.
that sheet differs from this one, but this is the one.
All said and done, it's a
1.2.
$300 increase.
So it's $75 a quarter. Just,
It's a cup of coffee a day
This is not dated.
for 50 cents.
This was
So what I'll
updated.
do is, I'll adjust all these numbers tomorrow, and then I'll run them all again. And then I can send you, want me to send an email to everyone? You
Yes,
can take a
please.
look
Nice
at it
for us,
before,
like on the
and then
26th.
you can get it to Sue, then she'll send it out.
And I can get it from Alex.
I would go
I'll
with the other
break
one.
that
So
in there.
326.
Yeah.
What do you want to do, Dr.
You got a
Casco?
date there somewhere on that thing?
I wrote it myself.
Oh,
I would go with,
That's what I assumed.
use 2.2
There it is, 289?
or
Yes, sir.
2.9.
Judy, can you date all these?
1.9.
I'm sorry.
plus anticipated.
Let's make it 6.9 and pay everything off. I'm sorry.
He's talking about.
I'm sorry.
You want to split the difference?
So this was 326?
I could go with splitting the difference between 2 and
1.5 maybe?
2.2 and 2.1. I wouldn't be adverse to that.
You want to go like 1.5?
Go 1.5.
Well, what's so bad about 289?
Nothing.
You know, it's not much of a tax increase.
Well, we had decreases, so all we're gonna do is go back to where we were 4 years ago, which
Yeah.
isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
But that's a couple $100,000 we can use for something else. Cash.
We don't use cash here at all.
Well, we have to start learning now.
Yeah, well, the problem is it's sitting in a bank and it just sits there and sits there and sits
Because
there. We
we
don't use
have-
it.
Because there's no plan.
So, you
So
know,
Mr. Bruno's at 1.2, Mr. Ullman, you were at 1.2, right?
That is correct.
Mr. Cumming, where are you at?
I'm at 1.2 also,
1.2's out.
on my own thinking.
Judy, prepare it with 1.2
1.2.
surplus.
And can you please relook at all these anticipated revenues to see what needs to be updated?
The only one I have to change that I know so far is the outside billing, which really is not nice because we made $140,000 last year on that.
So how do you have interest on investments and deposits?
That's the interest that we're getting from Lower County Bank.
We get interest? So I've been asking whether we get interest, and no one's ever answered me, so we get interest.
Yeah, no one's ever answered that.
Yeah, well, I wanted to
No,
put
we
money
have interest.
overnight deposits or something to get extra interest to see what we can do, so.
No, my understanding is that we have a pretty good rate from them also. That's my
The cell
understanding.
tower at 88 is a good number.
Yes,
Energy receipts, 713, good number.
that's exactly from the state.
Tonnage grant, 20,000? Or is
That might
that
be a little
gone?
high. I found some grants here that have been unappropriated, so I'm working with Alex to appropriate them into the
Who's
budget.
Alex?
Alex is Latrincy, because for some reason on.
No, I think that number's
Latrincy-
accurate, Judy.
Sorry?
That number's accurate based on the tonnage grants.
I know, but we were going over the AFS, and there's been some grants here that have been unappropriated, so we'll probably take them into the budget. I don't know why they were unappropriated, but they weren't. I mean, you could use that money. It's not a lot, but maybe a couple $1,000 difference.
What about from receipts from delinquent taxes? We haven't got 300,000.
That was an estimate, that's gotta be lowered too, because I was going by, because the AFS is unaudited, but Alex said he's pretty sure about that number. He wants it lowered down to 248,900.
Well, we haven't seen that in years.
That's what he said,
Who said this
Alex, he does the AFS from Latrincy, and even though it's unaudited, he said he was comfortable with making that 248,909.
The highest we've ever used is 46,000. I mean, what do we need all that money
Are
for?
you looking at receipts?
Yeah.
Receipts
Well,
from
if you look-
delinquent
no, you
taxes.
You look at this, okay?
This the reserve?
No, this is where revenue is supposed to be posted when people pay delinquent taxes, and if I look at this, it wasn't posted correctly.
really?
Yeah.
But what about reserve for uncollected taxes? We lowered it by 100,000 last year, and we were supposed to keep lowering it
Well,
until we
actually,
got to
I-
a decent number.
Well, the thing is, when you look at Edmunds, the way Edmunds runs, okay, reserve for uncollected is really not a revenue. That's why I don't have anything in there. It's really not a revenue. It's a non-spending budget item.
Oh, because we lowered it by 100,000
Right,
last
and
year.
actually, I actually put in 715, because I calculated that. He's gonna see if that's a good number, because I lowered it.
Oh, you did?
That goes into your surplus, really. That's, we'd never had uncollected taxes of that amount.
So
but
it's
we
just a
started-
surplus builder because it's just
That's
moving
what it
from
is.
one line to.
It's a surplus.
It's a
That's
surplus
exactly what
builder,
it
okay.
is.
All right.
But where is that? Why don't I see that?
It's the last
That's
page of
77.
70, page 70, the last line.
77. Most of the way to the bottom.
Page 70.
77.
In the book, it's page 70, Bob, what you're looking at.
Oh, okay, page 70. Okay.
We lowered it 100,000 last year to 775, and Judy's anticipating lowering it to 715,
I
right?
put 715. Unless you want to bump it up to.
No, I
about
think that's a
what,
good
you
number.
know. I mean, there is a calculation for that, and it's within the calculation.
Okay. Well, last year we were told there was no calculation, so I'm glad you're saying there's a calculation.
No, there is it's in the AFS.
Yeah, it's a fixed amount, but we kept putting it in every
kept
year, but
putting
we
it in,
never
yeah.
needed it.
I mean, you can change, don't get me wrong, you could, as long as you have a minimum, like, you know how the library is a minimum, there's a minimum for that also, but sometimes people buff it up. just
So
to
will you be able to
increase
get
surplus.
Sue an email tomorrow with these revised
Sure.
numbers and what the new tax rate numbers would be if we use the 1.2 million?
Not a problem.
And gentlemen, do we think we need to meet before Monday night then, or are we okay with introducing Monday night?
I'm not,
Do you want to meet on Thursday? We have a special,
you know. yeah.
what's that?
I'm not comfortable adopting or introducing at this point, so.
Well, we have to introduce Monday night, so we.
No, I know, I mean, you can
so-
do it, I'm not comfortable with what's happened and what we were presented, so that's a different story.
You can always introduce and amend your budget, but I think the state had told Susan that we have to introduce by the 8th. I think
That was our
the
last
timeline.
extension was Monday night, the 8th, correct?
So maybe
Do we need a
you can,
majority for the budget, or we need a super majority, Mr. Tovo, do you know?
Majority.
Majority.
You need a majority for minuses. need a supermajority for the pluses.
So Sue, can you advertise for Thursday? And we're always going to be here on Monday, right? So,
What time on Thursday?
do you want me to put Saturday in as a holder, gentlemen, just to put it in there? Because it doesn't cost us more to advertise?
Put it down in case, and this way it's there. Hopefully we don't have to use it. But I'd say, why not?
Is everybody available on Saturday just to put it in there? Because
Because if you don't do it,
yes. 6th.
6th.
And Judy, I'm sorry,
Sure.
can you revisit the town day, the 45,000?
I thought we were going to do that.
So I'm not completely clear.
What happened with Town Day, there was money in the reserve, and I don't know who did it.
In the reserve or in the
Well, the
trust?
reserve, which is trust.
Okay.
Now, you know you have a current fund and you have a trust fund.
Yes.
Someone transferred the money out of the trust to the current and took it as anticipated revenue, which you can do. But I think the preferred method would have been to charge all those expenditures to the trust itself.
So-
And that's why I think you really wanted it to be done that way.
Yes, but if we moved it out of the reserve into current,
No, we
And we're-
we moved it into income, as if we were going to receive $45,000 from sponsors, technically.
Like, if you didn't move it into current, what would have happened would have been you would have had to raise your taxes more by the 45,000.
Okay.
That's basically what,
No, because we wouldn't have budgeted Town Day, we would have charged all these expenses to the
Right,
reserve.
but I'm saying, that's what they did. They took that money out of one fund and put it in another fund. And to reduce the amount to be raised by $45,000 is really not, it probably comes to pennies.
Meaningless.
Probably comes to pennies.
but
to
I guess
taxpayer.
my concern is who's passing these entries and what's the basis for that? So can you look at the ledger? I mean, are there copies of GL tickets? I mean, someone has to be able to,
Well, I know that someone made the entry, but someone had to propose to but you were saying you never get anticipated revenues, so I guess no one proposed to you until the budget was done that they anticipated the 45,000 in the budget? Was it
No.
just done without you seeing it? Is that?
Yep.
Yes, it was done without us
So
seeing.
that's why I guess that's what happened.
I mean, I've been very clear and emphatic about using these reserves instead of doubling up, as Mr. Cassio, Dr. Cassio has said, we keep double taxing the residents year after year after year for money that sits in these reserves.
No, they should be, that's why I didn't put anything in unemployment, because the unemployment has 200,000.
No, the unemployment, you said, but we can't take that out.
It's only for unemployment, but that'll last you for 10 years.
More.
So it's going back.
I mean, whatever reserves we could use, I'd tap into it, because, I mean, if you're taking 45,000 in, that's really not saving you that much for amount to be raised. I think you're just better off using up the reserves.
No, but we taxed the taxpayers again for Town Day, that shouldn't have.
the purpose of the reserves are twofold. One, to regenerate income for the next year. Two, emergency fund. You need it. Other than that,
Well, also, you're getting
It should-
donations in there, so people are donating
it should be stripped
to
down
fund
to,
those events.
it should be stripped down to nothing other for those two purposes only.
I agree.
But those should be shown as revenues now and not put against the expense so that we know what the real cost is. Anything that we receive money for, i.e. calendar, Town Day, et cetera, should be shown as revenues, and the expense should be shown as expense. Otherwise, we'll never know how much anything costs us,
Well, it should all be run through the reserve.
if there's money
That's
there.
how it should be run through the reserve.
Whatever.
Well, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
Good for you.
Anything else, gentlemen?
All right, so we're gonna advertise for
Thursday,
and
Saturday.
Saturday?
And Monday, which is
Well,
the,
Monday's a regular, yeah, I got a Monday.
Well, it's not a
also,
regular
but-
meeting,
Yeah,
so.
Thursday, what time?
7 o'clock, gentlemen?
I have to tell you, I have to be out of here by 9, no later than 9 on Thursday.
Can you make 7, Mike, or is that too early?
I'll figure it out.
So 9 a.m. on Saturday and 7 a.m. on, 7:30 on Monday.
7:30 on Monday?
Yep.
7:30 on
Mr.
Monday?
President,
Yes, that
And 9
is
AM on
total.
Saturday?
the discussion on the collective bargaining agreement will be at least an hour in length.
So do we want to do that another night, gentlemen? Because, or do you
We'll do it Monday.
We could do it Monday night. Can we do it Monday night? You'll have more answers?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's do it Monday, because we'll finish, we'll do the budget, the
And then
budget will be done, and
correct,
then we
and
go
we'll
on
just spend
into
an hour
that.
on that. Thank you, Mr.
Do
Bill.
are we finished with all salary discussions at this point?
No, we are not.
Okay.
Thursday, we will go into closed session, Mr. Mayor. You have information regarding the one line. We're going to rice the employee tomorrow or Thursday.
More than likely, yes.
We're going to rice her for Thursday, so I want to make sure we're ready for Thursday. You think we'll be ready for that?
I do.
Should be no reason why we shouldn't. It's a 5-minute discussion with somebody, a 2-minute lookup.
I don't know I'm just asking the mayor a question, that's all.
No, I know, but you know what it takes to give somebody an increase and to research it.
So Sue, can you rice the employee and motion to adjourn, gentlemen?
What do we, before we adjourn?
Oh, sorry.
So, Judy, you understand what we're looking for, correct? With this particular line item? The salary information for this particular line item?
I think I understand.
So, from an accounting perspective, forgetting what happened, for lack of a better term, administratively, can you explain what happened within the accounting system, within, the entries that were passed, and how this came to be?
Well, when I look at the detail, it seems, what happens is that certain departments, just like, they're actually into one lump sum of S&W salary and wages, okay? But I would think there would have to be some kind of backup record in payroll that actually details who was getting what and what area it was charged to. I mean, just from this, you can't tell, there's still lumped in S&W.
Exactly.
But I would think that there would be a detailed sheet back in those entries.
Mr.
And
Mayor, is
that's
it
what I would
okay
use
if
payroll.
Mrs. Curran provides that information to us for Thursday?
Can we clarify which line item you're referring to, though? I'm not sure we're
Both-
both
all-
on the same page.
I think we're talking about one line item.
No, it's two because there's that.
Well,
yeah.
yes, it's one individual.
In essence, okay. I understand what you're looking for.
And we'd like
So
to see the W-2 from the payroll company.
God.
Understood.
That was one of the requests that was made.
And my leg,
Okay.
a brace on my knee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Funny bone?
Sounded painful.
So Judy,
Anything else, Mr. Bruno?
so will Judy get the information for us?
Mr. Mayor, is it okay if Judy gets us that information for Thursday?
Yeah.
And we'd also like you to contact the payroll company and get the W-2 form, or whoever get that, I don't know.
I think we may have them on the premise.
You have to keep copies.
Normally they're printed out.
Okay, I don't know who has them, but we'd like a copy for Thursday. Anything else, gentlemen, before we adjourn?
No.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Everybody all in favor?
Yes.
We'll make it quick.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, sounds good.
Mike, can you shut the mics off?